To proceed. So today, as we said last time, inshallah, we will go over corporations or companies or partnership, al-sharika. Okay, so partnership, corporation, company. We will talk about ahkam al-sharikat, or the rulings of partnership. Before we do, this is an area where so much has changed in sort of the world that we live in, the sharikat or the companies that our fuqaha were familiar with and that our fuqaha addressed are very different from the companies that we have now. Even the names of the companies they talked about are pretty different from the names of the companies we have now. It's not just about names, it's about realities also. Things are a lot more complex now, which requires a great effort on the part of the fuqaha, the contemporary fuqaha, to basically take those rulings, those individual rulings, those particular rulings, to a higher level of abstraction, to be able to extract from those rulings at a higher level of abstraction the theory, the philosophical foundation behind those rulings, in order for them to come down at a lower level now of particularization and address the particular rulings of our companies. You can't really do simple grafting of rulings from the companies that they talked about, the companies that existed 1,000 years ago, and the companies that we have now. You really need to be familiar with the ilal, the effective causes behind those rulings, the hikam also. Sometimes the wisdom could be mundabit, could be measurable, quantifiable, discernible enough that our understanding of the hikmah will help us in the application, in the modern application of those rulings. So this is important. In order for the rulings or the sharia to be viable, we really have to engage in this exercise all the time, particularly when it comes to matters that have seen a lot of changes. Having said that, it is important also that I would say, that I would add to this, that this requires a very high level of expertise and specialization. A very high level of expertise and specialization. The fuqaha that will do this need to be specialized, need to be very familiar with financial transactions. It would be even better if they have a degree in these particular fields or disciplines. So we will mention in our discussion, particularly when we come to crossing the bridge between antiquity and modernity, and in our discussion of modern companies, we will mention a lot the AAOIFI, which is called the IOFI. And the IOFI is basically an abbreviation for accounting and auditing organization for Islamic financial and institutions. and that would be translated in Arabic into, in Arabic that would be translated into هيئة المحاسبة والمراجعة للمؤسسات المالية الإسلامية. So it's based in Bahrain, and there are many fuqaha that are on the board of this organization. What they do is basically they review contracts and they establish standards. That's why their output comes out in the form of standards, ma'ayir. They call them al-ma'ayir al-shar'iyya, juridical standards or shar'iyya standards. They are sort of the most specialized that I can think of. And the hay'a is made out of significant fuqaha. It does not mean that they are the only fuqaha that understand about financial transactions, but they are of the fuqaha that understand about financial transactions. So that's why we give attention to their standards, and although they would not take the power of consensus, and they are not the final say, they are very significant. They're very significant, and they have a place in our understanding of the fiqh of contemporary financial transactions. So that's IOFI. That's an introduction to IOFI. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I don't have that expertise in contemporary financial transactions, so I will be mainly addressing الشركات المسماة في الفقه الإسلامي. I will be mainly addressing the companies that are known in fiqh, in classical fiqh, in traditional classical fiqh. I will be mentioning some of the rulings of modern companies and some of the modern applications, particularly the philosophical foundation from which we extract those modern applications. But don't count on me as an expert in this particular field, because I'm truly not, and this is not out of humbleness or anything. It's just a fact. So we will be mainly focusing on the classical aspects of the rulings. So we will go over what Imam ibn Qudamah said here in the chapter, and we will try to basically take the rulings to that higher level of abstraction, so that we can thereafter understand, when the scholars that are specialized in contemporary financial, in the fiqh of contemporary financial transactions, we will try to understand where they're coming from, or what they're talking about, when basically the analogy is not that exact between modern companies and classical companies or corporations in fiqh. Al-Imam al-Sheikh ibn Qudamah rahimahullah ta'ala said in his book Al-Umdat, under the chapter of al-Sharika, Babu al-Sharika, or chapter on partnerships and companies, he said, وَهِيَ عَلَى أَرْبَعَةِ أَضْرُبٍ. And that's basically, if you give a title to this, I gave a title in the book, أنواع الشركات, or the types of partnerships. He said, وَهِيَ عَلَى أَرْبَعَةِ أَضْرُبٍ. There are 4 types. شركة العنان وهي أن يشترك بماليهما وبدنيهما. The first type is Ainan, full reign partnership. This is partnership with money and effort, basically capital and labor, partnership of capital and labor. So now he will talk basically about the types of sharikat, or the types of partnership. But because this is a manual, he does not go into the small details, or sometimes he does not address. A manual is a manual. A manual is a short text that's not really comprehensive. But is an important primer for the student of fiqh, and we are expanding a little bit, so this is like an intermediate level type of class. So we are going beyond the scope of the manual a little bit. So Sheikh started to talk about the different types of sharikat, and he will mention 4 types of sharikat or corporations. But at a higher level, there are 2 categories of sharikat. There is sharikat al-milk and sharikat al-aqd. Sharikat al-milk and sharikat al-aqd. Sharikat al-milk is basically co-ownership. Co-ownership. It is basically partnership in property. Milk is property. Milk is ownership. Milk is ownership. It means partnership in property. And that partnership in property is basically 2 or more people. The definition of شركة is, اشتراك اثنين فأكثر في استحقاق أو تصرف. It is basically when 2 people, the partnership of 2 people in an entitlement or authority, legal capacity. So legal capacity will be here, entitlement will be here. This is ownership. Let us say that we bought a building together. You paid some money, I paid some money, and we purchased the building together. Now we co-own that building. We are shuraka, we are partners in that building. Let us say we inherited money. Both of us inherited money together. We co-own the whatever estate or the ranch or the building. So we co-own things, and that co-ownership is a form of sharika. It's a form of partnership. But in that form of partnership, there is no wakala between us, and there is no kafala between us. In other words, you are not my agent, I'm not your agent. In other words, you are not liable for my actions, and I'm not liable for your actions or transactions. So we just basically co-own this building, but we do not represent each other. We do not represent each other. And this type of partnership, which is aqd partnership, which is contractual partnership, aqd means contract, and sharika means sharika. So it's partnership, it's contractual partnership. There are 2 criteria here. There are 2 basically foundations for this partnership. It is comprised of part agency and part daman or kafala. Part agency meaning that we represent each other. It's wakala. Last time we talked about al-wakala, right? And prior to this we talked about guarantorship, which is daman, right? So al-wakala and al-kafala or daman, the concept of sharika is comprised of these 2 concepts. It's wakala, it is agency, it is kafala, it's guarantorship. So we're representing each other. Like whatever you do it on your behalf and my behalf, or on behalf of everybody who is a partner. So that is wakala, that's agency. Each one of the partners does have that legal capacity. And then because we do things on behalf of each other, then the other concept also is kafala. We basically cover each other. We're liable for each other's transactions. And that is why we are partners. So in sharikat al-milk, that is not the case. We don't represent each other, and we're not liable for each other's actions. You own your part, I own my part, and that's it. So co-ownership or sharikat al-milk, let us remove this, because this is not going to be what we will focus on in this chapter. In this chapter we are focusing on sharikat al-aqd or contractual partnership. And then the Sheikh will start to talk about the types of contractual partnerships. And let us say that before we get to what the Sheikh said, he will mention 4 different types of partnership, because he probably was not convinced that mufawada is a valid type of partnership. There is controversy within the Hanbali madhab about mufawada. So maybe we make a table, and then mention okay, so partnerships. So the order that the Sheikh used here is Ainan, Wujuh, Mudaraba, and Abdan. Ainan, Wujuh, Mudaraba, and Abdan. So Ainan, I translated this into full reign partnership. Wujuh will be, let's say, credit partnership. Mudaraba is usually translated as profit sharing. It's actually not a classical partnership, but it is usually translated as profit sharing, but it's a form of investment financing, not necessarily a partnership in the classical sense. That's why some of the scholars actually sorted out, separate Mudaraba from the rest of partnerships. They give it a chapter by itself. And then Abdan, which is, in some would be called the Sana'a or A'mal or whatever. It is labor partnership. And then Mufawada, the Sheikh did not mention Mufawada, which is just full authority partnership, and we will come to it. So Ainan is full reign, Wujuh is credit, Mudaraba is profit sharing, Abdan is labor. When we talk about partnership, we're talking about some people embarking on a venture, a business venture or an endeavor to make profit, right? How do you make profit? Like, you make profit Islamically, you can make profit by contributing capital, labor, or, and this is a little bit controversial, at the root of it, it's capital or labor. But because the man, which is liability, being liable, goes back to contributing capital and labor. And that is this wujuh or credit partnership that we will talk about now. So you either contribute capital, labor, or you assume liability, and because you assume the liability, then you're entitled to some profit. And this is the wujuh, which the Malikis would call zimam. Zimam partnership. It's credit partnership. So the Sheikh said here, because he will just give definitions and he will just move on. So we are really expanding on what the Sheikh said, because this is an important chapter. So he said, شركة العنان وهي أن يشترك بماليهما وبدنيهما. Ainan, or full reign partnership, this is partnership with money and effort. This is partnership with money and effort. So in Sharikat al-Ainan, we're putting what here? We're putting money plus effort, and the other partner or other partners, everybody is contributing money plus effort. Everybody is contributing money and effort. That is why it is called the Ainan partnership. That is why it's called the Ainan partnership. Why? Ainan is the bridle of the horse. So it is as if the partners are like the bridles of horses in a race. They are next to each other. So they're equal in every regard. They're all contributing both capital and labor, money and effort. Money and effort, or capital and labor. So they're like the bridles of the horse. And this is the most classical type of partnership. This is the essence of partnership. Sharikat al-Inan is the essence of partnership, and Sharikat al-Inan is agreed upon by the four mazahib. So we can say that Sharikat al-Inan is accepted by the Hanafis, Malikis, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis. They disagree over details, so certainly when it comes to the details they'll disagree. But in concept, Sharikat al-Inan is agreed upon. This is the essence of partnership. This is the most classical form of partnership. Then he said, وشركة الوجوه وهي أن يشترك فيما يشتريان بجاههما. Wujuh, or credit partnership, partners start the business using their standing on credit. They use their reputation. They don't have money. Two people, they don't have money at all. They say, let's start a company. Let's start a business. We have a good reputation in the market. We have good credit. We have good reputation in the market. We have good credit. Let's go buy things and sell them and share the profit. So why do they need to do this together? Because they synergize. Whenever you have a part of the wisdom of sharikat in general is that they synergize each other. They support each other. They strengthen each other when they come together. And sharika, the concept of sharika is, we didn't start by saying this, but it is in the document. It's agreed upon that the concept of sharika is permissible. They mentioned the Quran, the Sunnah. Sa'ib used to be the partner of the Prophet ﷺ before al-Ba'tha, and when the Prophet ﷺ, when he accepted Islam and came to the Prophet ﷺ thereafter, during the year of Fath Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Marhaban bi akhi wa shariki kana la yudari wa la yumari." Welcome my brother and my partner, old partner, that's before Islam. You see how faithful the Prophet ﷺ is. This is a man who used to be his partner, but he did not come to him and accept Islam except during Fath Makkah, which is, how many years that was, like 21 years after the Prophet ﷺ started, his ministry. But then the Prophet ﷺ recognized them and he said, "Welcome my brother and partner, kana la yudari wa la yumari." He did not use to yudari and yumari. He did not use to be argumentative or he did not use to conceal and hide or to argue and dispute. So he mentioned some of his good qualities as a partner. In addition to this, there is a hadith reported reported by Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi and others from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where it's a hadith Qudsi in which the Prophet ﷺ relates from Allah that he said, "Ana thalithu sharikayn ma lam yakhun ahaduhuma sahibahu fa idha khanahu kharajtu min baynihima." Ana thalithu sharikayn, I am the third of the two partners, إذا لم يخن أحدهما صاحبه, as long as none of them betrays his partner. فإذا خانه خرجت من بينهما. So once one of them betrays his partner, I will leave the partnership. I will come out from that partnership, or leave their partnership. And that's an important concept that we have to remember, because to understand the technicalities of the law is not sufficient. unless you understand the spirit of the law. So at the root of it is that you should be transparent. La tudari, la tumari, should not be argumentative. You should be transparent, and you should not betray your partner in any way, shape, or form. And if that is the spirit that you're coming into the partnership with, that you'll be transparent, that you'll be responsible, that you will not be argumentative, will be easygoing. Samhan idha ba'a, samhan idha ishtara, samhan idha qada, samhan idha iqtada. You'll be samh, meaning easygoing in your transactions, transparent, and you never hide, you never conceal, you never betray your partner. Inshallah, even if you don't understand the technicalities very well, inshallah you will be okay. And then you could learn on the job and try to improve your knowledge of the law. We're not making light of the law. It's extremely important, because that is how we protect those values. That is how we protect the values at the root of our religious practice and religious commitment. So, but the basis of this has to be the moral basis. The moral basis of accountability, transparency, responsibility, brotherhood. You love for your brother or sister what you love for yourself, and then we try to understand the law in order for us to perfect our practice and to do it in a way that's most pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we said that wujuh partnership or credit partnership is another form of partnership. These are people who do not have money. They went out and they decided to basically use their credit. So it is credit plus, so it is credit versus credit. You contribute credit, I contribute credit. You know, but keep in mind that this is credit and labor, because we will take this stuff and do something with it. So you want to add labor here and labor here. But Ra's al-Mal, the capital of the company, is basically the credit that we have. And because there is no Ra's al-Mal, because there is no capital, when we started this partnership, there is no capital, there is no Ra's al-Mal. This form of company was rejected by the Malikis and Shafi'is. The Malikis are basically, you could say that they're comparable to the Hanbalis in their flexibility with partnership. They're very flexible with partnership. They're, basically the easiest madhab, or the most flexible madhab in partnerships, opposite to the Shafi'is, who are very limited or strict in their sort of partnership fiqh. But the Malikis came here and said, no, we'll have to put it like a stop here. This is not a partnership. It doesn't work. They don't have a capital to begin that venture. And the fact that they're sharing liability is not something that is measurable, is not something that you sell or buy. It's not something that can be used as a capital to start a venture. So the Malikis did not accept this. The Shafi'is did not accept this. So at the end of the day, this is only accepted by the Hanafis and the Hanbalis. Only accepted by the Hanafis and the Hanbalis. In this partnership, the Hanbalis were so flexible that they allowed just like so many things. So the Hanbalis said that we will allow them to do this, and we will allow them to agree on their shares. Why is it important that they agree on what they will own? So we're going out now to buy stuff. We're going out to buy stuff. We don't have money, we're going to buy stuff on credit. And then the stuff will be mixed. But who's entitled to what? How are we going to divide the profit? Keep in mind that in partnerships in general, particularly Hanbali-wise, and Hanafi as well. In partnerships in general, there is a golden rule, which is الربح على ما اتفق والوضيعة على رأس المال. الربح على ما اتفق. So profit, ربح على ما اتفق. Profit will be in accordance with or according to their agreement. Will be divided according to their agreement. ما اتفق. What they agreed on. So profit will be divided according to their agreement. والوضيعة على رأس المال, and this is reported, the meaning of this is reported by في مصنف ابن أبي شيبة, in مصنف ابن أبي شيبة from علي رضي الله عنه. والوضيعة على رأس المال, and that part, والوضيعة على رأس المال, is a matter of consensus, which means what? Loss, الوضيعة is loss. على رأس المال will be the lot of the capital, will be the responsibility of the capital. So loss will be the responsibility or the lot of the capital, on the capital. Okay, that goes, that you know, Hanbali wise, that works in all forms of partnership. All forms of partnership, and then we will come to address like one technical exception, but it may not be an exception. Why is it that we are saying الربح على ما اتفق, which means that the profit will be divided according to the agreement? Because you could be more skillful than me. So in any partnership where labor is involved, effort is involved, you could be better than me. Therefore, it would be unfair to divide everything half and half, 50-50, if you're better than me. Here, the Hanbalis also said you could be more creditworthy than me. More creditworthy than me. You have a better reputation in the market. You can get more stuff. So now they can agree, according to the Hanbalis, they can agree in this partnership to divide the profit 50-50 or 70-30 or whichever way they want. Okay, now do they have to divide the profit on the basis of liability? No, they don't. And that's also another flexibility here Hanbalis offer. The Hanafis don't offer that flexibility. So if you say that I will be liable for 50% of the merchandise, it will be in my daman, in my liability, 50% of the merchandise. And you're liable for 50%. We still can divide the profit 50-50 or 70-30. Huh? Because there is some labor involved here, and there is some effort involved here. So our agreement to be, for me to be liable for 50%, you liable for 50%, does not mean that when we go out to the market to buy stuff, I will be able to get, the same amount of merchandise that you can get, because you could be more creditworthy. In addition to this partnership is not only about purchase, it's also about going out and selling those things. And you could be a better salesperson. So in this case, we could agree that you take 70 and I take 30, but when it comes to loss, how do we divide the loss? Who's responsible for what? When it comes to loss, we will have to basically divide the loss based on our liability. So if I was liable for 50% and you are liable for 50%, but we agreed that I take 70% of the profit and you take 30% of the profit, if we lose the money, since we agreed that I will be liable for 50% and you will be liable for 50%, I will shoulder one half of the loss, you will shoulder one half of the loss, 50% of the loss and 50% of the loss. The loss will be divided 50-50. Okay? Now, we will come at the end and try to bring all of this up to a higher level of abstraction. Maybe we can even spell this out from now. At the end of this, do you remember in the chapter of al-Buyu' I told you that there are 3 big things that we have to avoid in financial transactions? One of them is riba. One of them is gharar, which is excessive risk taking or excessive speculation. And one of them is al-ghabn, which is inequity. So this is the highest level of abstraction. This is the highest level of abstraction. At a lower level of abstraction, when it comes to a sharikat in particular, we want what? I want to get this out of the way. I don't know. No, I should not get it out of the way. But when it comes to a sharikat in particular, we want to avoid jahala, or basically lack of transparency. Jahala means ignorance. Like, we want to avoid anyway, jahala. We want the capital and the profit have to be agreed on. So we want to avoid any lack of transparency. Huh? Ambiguity. Oh, thank you. We want to avoid any ambiguity, and you remember I like that word. So thank you. We want to avoid any ambiguity in the capital, which is Ra's al-Mal, or the Ribh, which is the profit. Therefore, the capital has to be known, and the profit has to be known. And I will come back and talk. I'll go back to al-Inan and talk about how the capital has to be known and the profit has to be known. So we want to avoid jahala, we want to avoid ambiguity. Avoiding ambiguity will serve which cause? This one here, excessive risk taking. We want to minimize gharar. We want to minimize excessive risk taking. So everything needs to be clear and transparent. We have to agree on the capital. We have to agree on the profit. At the inception of the company, we have to agree on the capital and we have to agree on the profit. So here in Sharikat al-Anan, which is the essence of companies in Islam, at the inception, there is capital and there is profit. And this capital has to be, according to the Hanbalis and the majority, this capital has to be in the form of currency. It cannot be in the form of merchandise or other forms of property. It cannot be a ard, it has to be naqd. It cannot be other than currency, it has to be currency. However, the Malikis, and that's also a position within the Hanbali madhab that's less popular, allowed the capital to be property. So let us say that I am a tailor and I have a sewing machine, and you are a tailor and you have what other machines that they use? There is one thing then, Surgery?
Embroidery.
Embroidery machine? Okay, there is something like this. And then you bring your machine, I bring my machine. This is the capital of the company, this is the capital of the company. Now, the majority did not allow this. They said that we're not going to allow this. The capital of the company has to be naqd, has to be currency. Why? Because currency is currency, and then at the time of dispute, everybody contributed this. Or the Maliki said, why don't we value why don't we estimate the value of that property and that property, and if we agree on the estimates, then that is the capital you're providing, and that is the capital I'm providing. The majority of contemporary scholars allow this now. So it's the Maliki position and the weaker position in the Hanbali madhab. But that is not the Hanafi or Shafi'i, or even the Hanbali position, the authorized Hanbali position. So capital in this case can be property or currency. Currency by agreement, all of them agree. Property, a little bit controversial. And then when it comes to the profit, we have to agree on the profit. We have to agree on the profit. The profit here, can the profit here be divided not in proportion to capital? The Hanbali said yes. The profit can be divided here not in proportion to the capital, because there is labor involved, and you could be, where we don't have, there is. So they allowed this. And in Inan in particular, the majority would allow this. At least 2 out of 4 would allow that we divide the capital on the basis of the profit. At least the Hanbalis and the Hanafis would allow that we divide the capital, we divide the profit, and not strictly on the basis of the capital. Not strictly on the basis of the capital. So if we contributed 50-50 in terms of capital, I can get 70% of the profit, you get 30% of the profit. When it comes to loss, the loss is always proportioned to the capital. The loss is always, and this is one of the most essential rulings agreed upon. No one argues about this. That's the essence of it. And why is it that the loss has to be always proportioned to the capital? Because in order for us to avoid riba, gharar, and ghabn, we have to make sure that we remove all ambiguity. We have to make sure also that there is no لا ضمان لرأس المال. لا ضمان لرأس المال, meaning that there is no protection or immunity for capital. There is no capital immune to loss. No capital is immune to loss. Daman here meaning guarantee. No guaranteed capital. No guaranteed capital. Includes insurance. What do you mean by insurance? And insurance is totally, it's a big story that we'll come to at one point.
A salaried partner?
Okay, yeah, and then we will come to this now. When it comes to the salaried partner. لا ضمان لرأس المال. No guaranteed capital. That is one thing. Remove ambiguity, no guaranteed capital. Another one, I'm just going to have to get Mufawada out of the way. Another one here is لا لقطع اشتراك الربح. Basically, we have to ascertain, ensure their partnership in profit. Partnership in profit. لا ربح إلا بعد وقاية رأس المال. No profit before recouping the capital. Before recouping the capital. We can't, no profit before recouping the capital. Okay, no ambiguity, no profit before recouping the capital, no guaranteed capital. We have to ensure that there is going to be partnership in profit. Is there anything else? We have to apply now the rulings that we are extracting here. We have to always go back and apply them to this level of abstraction and then apply them to this level of abstraction. So we're saying here that the capital has to be in the form of currency according to the majority. The Malikis and a weaker position in the Hanbali madhab allowed this to be in the form of property. Where does this belong here? It belongs to removal of ambiguity. Removal of ambiguity. There should be no ambiguity. We're saying here that the profit has to be divided, on the basis of, this لا لربح ما لم يضمن. No profit without liability. No profit without liability. Liability. Okay, and that's it. When we will be done. This is the highest level of abstraction. This is next to it. And then we will have to apply everything to those. So now, the profit, we said we can agree on dividing the profit, but the loss has to be proportionate to the capital. If the loss is not proportionate to the capital, then what are we having? We're having guaranteed capital, and we could also be having profit, the guaranteed capital. Guaranteed capital is the one that we're violating here, is the principle that we are violating here. So if we agree, that, the profit will be 70%, 30%. But as one of the two partners, I am not going to be responsible for the loss. I am not responsible for any losses. And that is not losses beyond the assets of the company, because that's a different issue. In modern companies, limited liability versus not limited liability, or if you're going to be responsible for the losses in your private money or not, that's a different issue. But if we say that I'll contribute $200, you contribute $100, we divide the profit between us 70%, 30%, but the loss will be all yours, or the loss will be all mine, that is guaranteeing capital, and that would be forbidden. And that would be forbidden. So the loss has to be proportioned to the capital that was contributed. The profit does not have to be proportioned to the capital that was provided. Why? Because the labor is not equal. $100 is equal to $100. You cannot make a distinction between the profit of this $100 and this $100. But my labor is not equal to your labor. Therefore, we could agree on different proportions when it comes to profit. When is it that we cannot agree on different proportions when it comes to the profit? In the profit sharing model, where it is capital provided by one side versus labor provided by one side. We can agree on profit sharing in different ways. But let us say that capital was provided by two people. Capital was provided by two people, and they gave their money, mixed their money, gave their money to a person, a mudarib, to basically invest it. In this case, I cannot, we cannot agree on profit that is not proportionate to the capital. Between the capitalist and the laborer, we can agree on a division, 60-40, 20-80, 50-50. Between the two capitalists, the profit that will be the lot of the capital, not the labor. Well, let's say the capitalists are entitled to 70%. We cannot divide this 70% among us as capitalists on the basis of a previous agreement. It has to be on the basis of the capital contributed. Why is this? To avoid ربح ما لم يضمن, to avoid making profit from without liability. Because if you contribute $100, I contribute $100, and then you get 70% of the profit, and I get 30% of the profit, you made profit from my capital, which I was not liable for. You know, which you were not liable for, I was liable for. So here, ربح ما لم يضمن, this is profit, making it off of nowhere. Not your capital, not your liability, not your labor. How are you taking the 70%? Why are you entitled to 70% of the profit that the capital is entitled to when both of us contributed $100? And we were not working. We had a laborer that was doing the investment. So yes, that laborer, we can agree with that laborer on whatever division we want. Because we could have little capital and we could rely mainly on the work of the laborer to invest it. In this case, the laborer will get 70% and we will get 30%. Or we can have huge capital. We can have, like, each one of us contributes like $5 million, and we give it to a laborer, and we tell the laborer, you invest it and you get 10% of the profit, and we get 90% of the profit. But at the end of the day, that 90% of the profit will be then divided in proportion to the capital that we contributed. Now, one other thing that we have, which is the ujra that you mentioned. When we talk about the profit, here in the essence of partnership, which is sharikat al-inan, which will apply to others as well. When we talk about the profit, is the profit then that we will, the profit we can agree on, whichever profit, but this profit is a percentage of the actual profit. Our individual profits will be a percentage fraction of the actual profit. It cannot be a percentage of the capital, and it cannot be a predetermined amount, lump sum. Cannot be a percentage of the capital, and it cannot be a predetermined amount. So we cannot say, we will get into this partnership, we'll divide the profit 70%, 30%, you're contributing capital and labor, I'm contributing capital and labor, we will divide the profit into 70 and 30, and I will get $100, on top of my, before we divide the profit, I get $100 and then we divide the profit between us. We can't do that. That's a predetermined amount. We cannot say, I will get 10% of my capital. Yeah, no. You don't get percentage of your capital, you get percentage of the profit that we will make.
Bonuses?
Huh?
Bonuses?
Bonuses? No, but we are agreeing on the profit. You could take 80% of the profit. You could take 90% of the profit. You could take 95% of the profit.
Yeah, but bonus is typically fixed number, not percentage.
No fixed amount, and no percentage of the capital. You cannot get a percentage of the capital, and you cannot get any predetermined fixed amount. You have to get a percentage of the profit. Now, this creates a little problem. Why? Because let us say that one of us will require to really work a lot more. And let's say that the same applies to the mudaraba, the profit sharing. One is providing labor, one is providing capital. Let us say the laborer says, I go to the laborer and tell him, here is $100,000. I want you to invest it. Let's open a store, and you will be the manager of the store, and we will divide the profit between us. I get 50%, you get 50%. That laborer will come and say, but I'm going to have to dedicate my time to the store, and I have to work 8 to 10 or whatever. I need to make a living. I need to, I have a family. And I'm not quite sure if that 50%, and particularly in the first year, or first 2 years, or first 3 years, will be enough. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do this. So how do we facilitate this? The Hanbalis said that the labor, everybody agreed by consensus that you cannot combine between salary and profit. That's a consensus. Yeah, you cannot combine between salary and profit in the contract of the partnership, the contract of the sharika, by consensus. Now, figuring out a way out of this, the Hanbali said that the laborer can ask for their nafaqah, their maintenance. And some of them said this is only if he will travel. Some of them, like Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, added even if he makes a condition for nafaqah without travel, he would be entitled to nafaqah, sustenance, maintenance, that is appropriate for someone like them. But still, everybody was agreeing that you cannot combine between salary and profit. Why is it that you cannot combine between salary and profit? Because it is this لا لقطع اشتراك الربح, to ensure partnership and profit. If you combine between salary and profit, if one of the partners here said, I will be the manager and I will take $5,000 and then the profit will be divided between us, maybe the profit of the company will not be even $5,000, or maybe it will just be $5,000. And in this case, we got into this partnership and you asked for a salary in addition to the profit, and this resulted in قطع الاشتراك في الربح. So this resulted in the profit going to one party and not the others, and that is forbidden in partnerships. So how is it that contemporary scholars figured out? Because nowadays it's not just going to work. So how is it that contemporary scholars figured out a way out of this? They said we'll have two separate contracts. So the contract, and sometimes this may be like loophole making or something like this to us, but at the end of the day, yeah, that's a different discussion. We'll not get into this. So we will make a contract I will take all of your questions because I'm just afraid, because if you spin me off of my train of thought, I can't go back. So, so at the end of the day, each contract will be self-dependent, will not be interdependent. The two contracts are not interdependent. So as partners, we can choose Muhammad, for instance, to be the manager, and since Muhammad will stay in the store from 8 to 5, and we're not, and we are not staying in the store, we will contribute labor, but not necessarily that much time consuming, then we will say to Muhammad, you will get $2,000 as a manager of the store. That is aside from the profit that you'll make. But that is going to be an interdependent contract, meaning if we annul this contract, the partnership contract is not annulled. So they are not interdependent, they are completely separate. So if we as partners come together and fire one of our partners from his position as a manager, if this was part of the initial agreement of partnership, that whole sharika now is dissolved. But now we will make two separate contracts. One is the partnership contract, and the other one is the hiring contract. Giving salary to an employee. Now, this employee could be one of the partners or may not be one of the partners. And if we hire one of the partners as our employee, we could thereafter come and fire them, and the company would continue to exist. Okay, so we need a little bit more sort of ijtihad and a little bit more thought into some other forms of combining salary and percentage. Let us say we agree that the laborer will get 50% of the profit, but with a minimum salary of a fixed amount. Well, you will get 50% of the profit, but if the profit is less than $8,000, you will get $4,000 every time. And I'm agreeing, they are agreeing. That is by agreement of the scholars not permissible, of the classical scholars. Because that is basically combining salary and profit in one contract, and it is not like two contracts, same contract. We're saying here, you're going to do this work, you're going to get 50% off with hadd adna, a minimum amount of 4,000, since you have family to take care of and stuff like this, and that is by agreement of classical scholars not allowed. That's an area that needs exploration, by contemporary scholars. It's an area that needs some exploration. Because here, why are we saying that this is a problem? Because this could result in in one of the partners coming out without profit and the other one taking the money. And this is qata ishtirak al-ribh. This is basically, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to say it. But qata ishtirak al-ribh, profit not going to one person, not the other. What is the problem here? The problem is here. It's called iniquity. It's called iniquity. Daman ra's al-mal, guaranteeing the capital. What's the problem here? It's called riba. Ambiguity. What's the problem here? It's called gharar. لا لربح ما لم يضمن, no profit without liability. It is called riba and it's called inequity. Could be this and could be that. But when it comes to this laborer here, that we agreed that he will take a minimum salary of some money, it may result in the profit all going to that laborer, and this is not permissible because it's inequity, and that's not the essence of partnership, that the profit will be divided. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل إلا أن تكون تجارة عن تراض منكم. O you who believe, do not devour your capital or your assets or your money among yourselves بالباطل, in falsehood, unless it is a commerce, unless it is a business by mutual agreement, unless it is a mutually agreed upon business. Which says what? At the bottom, that taradi, mutual agreement, has a place, an important place, because this exception was made here from this ayah, and then there also in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتُدْلُوا بِهَا لِلْحُكَّامِ لِتَأْكُلُوا فَرِيقًا مِنْ أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ بِإِثْمٍ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. So, but the prohibition of inequity in transactions, the exception in Surah An-Nisa, إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ تِجَارَةً عَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِنْكُمْ, except if it is a business upon which you agreed, mutual agreement. There is some room to think of alternatives here, because here this is not the capital exploiting labor, this is basically the capital securing for the laborer like some standard of living, like that nafaqah that the Hanbalis talked about, and even some of them said that even without travel you would be entitled to it. So this is an area of exploration. This is not my fatwa, it's just talking to you, like sort of talking to myself here. It's an area of exploration. So now the mudaraba. Should we take some time off and come back, or? Okay, we'll take some time off and come back. But before we go out, the mudaraba is agreed upon by all of them. So we have two different companies that are agreed upon by all of them. That is al-mudaraba and al-ainan. We'll take 7 minutes and come back, inshallah.